Welcome. Thank you for taking a few minutes to watch this video. One of the most requested tools that we have is what we call a success pathway. It's one of the many tools that we provide in our online courses, but also just in our services as we consult, as we coach people, leaders, teams, and organizations. And I want to share this tool with you today because this tool by itself will move the needle more significantly than most tools that you can deploy. Why? Well, first, we understand that we get things done through our people. If we lead our people well, then you will get better productivity, you will get better output, better profitability. But where does that come from? It doesn't come from our efforts alone. It comes from people understanding what is expected of them and what they can do to be successful in their role. That also includes a team. What does a team need to do to be successful? How do they best collaborate and work together? What are the expectations? Does everybody understand those? So as you watch this video, it is created inside of a course that was originally designed for hybrid and virtual teams, but it really is for any team. And I'm sure that you'll see that right away. The success pathway is a tool that will help you help your individuals and teams reach their highest level of performance. And that is what that course is called, Leading Teams to Become High-Performing Teams. I wanted you to see this and to have this tool available to you. It is one of the most requested services that we provide. It's one of the biggest challenges that people have. How do we get the right people in the first place, which is a different issue? But then when we get the right people, how do we help them be successful? How do we give good focus, good clarity, good direction? And how do we truly equip people to prosper, which is what we're all about. So I hope you enjoy this video and this tool that comes along with it. And check out our online offerings when you get the chance. Thank you. How's it going so far? By now, you've been introduced to the course, the objectives. You've spent some time looking at team data. What does good data look like? Now we're going to talk about the next step, which is how do we create a success pathway for our teams and for every member of the team? So what is a success pathway? I'll tell you about that here in a minute, but primarily it's a focus on getting from where we are today to where we need to be in the future to become successful, to accomplish and achieve the goals we want to achieve as individuals, as a team, and especially as a leader of a team. How do we help our people see what that success pathway looks like? That's what we're going to focus on in this section. First, what is a success pathway? It's a process where everyone comes together to understand expectations, how to be successful as an individual, but also how do we be successful as a team, and how do we collaborate? How do we create the level of success that we want? That's what a success pathway is. Notice that as the leader, you will be guiding the development of the success pathway for your team and for your team members. But I highly recommend making that an interactive process where you get their input, their perspectives. Doesn't mean all of that will be put into the success pathway. But if you want engagement, if you want to connect well and build trust with people so that your influence goes up with them, if you want better collaboration, if you want to create a place of psychological safety, which we know is critically important to high-performing teams, then inviting them into the process is a wonderful way to start building that higher performing team and those success pathways that will get you there. Individual and team success pathway starts with self-awareness. Is the individual aware of what they're expected to do and how they're expected to collaborate and invest in the team effort? Then we have understanding. Can they understand what acceptable behavior and performance looks like, both individually and as team members? The next step are the competencies that are needed. What competencies are needed? Do they have them? Do we need to equip them with additional training or other competencies or skill sets? What are the consequences? So many people see that word as a negative, but consequences have two sides: rewards and reprimands. So consequences can be very good or not so good, but they need to be involved in the success pathway, because otherwise, if there are no consequences, people really don't understand the importance or urgency of doing things well, of doing things in a certain way. We'll talk about this later in the course as we really get into the accountability framework. We'll talk a lot more about consequences then. Expectations. What are the expectations? And importantly, do they understand the expectations the same way you understand them? Remember, you're the leader. You probably have more experience and certainly have more authority. So do they truly understand things the way you do? Is there consensus and agreement around the understanding of what those expectations are? The schedule. How are you as a leader going to schedule coaching time and meetings and just all of those things that have to be scheduled to ensure that your team is operating at its highest level and you as a leader are operating at your best level? And then the last is supervise. And that just means good management. How are you going to make sure you supervise your people well? Now, you may have figured this out by now. The first letter in every one of those bullet points together spells success. That is the success pathway. But what do we do with this? How do we really put it to work for us and for our people? Well, one of the ways, and this is a different kind of assessment, is start with a honest look at a SWOT analysis of your team. This is a tool we use for teams all the time. It is very helpful. I'm sure you've seen it used for businesses or for organizations in a variety of different ways. This is very, very helpful for teams, especially if the team is involved in the process. It's one thing to have a group of leaders sitting around doing a SWOT analysis on different things, maybe your team. It's an entirely different experience when you bring your team in on this process and really tell them there's nothing off the table. We need to really be transparent and honest with ourselves. Because if you just paint some nice picture, some comfortable picture of what things you hope will look like, there's no value in that. This is a tool that is meant to peel back the layers and get a deep insight into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Very, very helpful process. very helpful in developing your success pathway. This will identify some key things that are strengths that can be leveraged, or some gaps where you just don't have some of the skills, some of the competencies, and maybe even some of the people you need for your team to operate and be successful at its highest level. Let me talk to you just a minute about the advantage of creating these success pathways, both for individual team members and for the team as a whole. Clarity and focus. If you look around our world today, there isn't an abundance of clarity and focus. And I will not go into the mess that our world is today, because there's still some really good things about our world. But in your world, in your team's world, wouldn't you want to have greater clarity, greater focus, so that there are less distractions, less disruptions, and you can really come together in a way that's going to provide the greatest possible outcomes? A good success pathway will give clear direction as well. That's the pathway part of this. Where are we going? If you think about this as being a map where you're trying to get from one place to the other, what is the route that you're going to take to get from where you are today to where you want to be in the future? That is the direction you can get out of doing these exercises and coming up with a success pathway. The beauty of this process is that it's action oriented. It is focused on moving forward, where so many things that have been put into team environments are placeholders. They're just things to do. They're busyness, not productivity. And I think that's a filter we as leaders need to put in place for ourselves and for our teams. If we're doing things that don't provide value, why are we doing those things? If that's a problem coming down from above you as a leader, part of your responsibility is to confront those things in an appropriate way. Okay, I totally get the whole job thing and everything else that goes along with that. But if we're going to be our team's champion, if that's who you want to be, then we need to be very diligent about looking for those things that suck energy and time and focus away from our people and from ourselves. Are we operating at our highest value? Great question.